The storm didn't arrive, it attacked. The sky over the valley turned from soft gray to violent black within minutes, as if the world itself had decided to unravel. And Liang, we stood at the edge of his ranch, watching the river swell beyond its banks, its calm surface replaced by a roaring force that swallowed trees, fences, and anything foolish enough to stand in its path. He had seen storms before, many of them, but something about this one felt different, alive, restless, as if it carried secrets within it, and that was when he saw them. Two figures in the water, not drifting but fighting. Their movements desperate yet strangely synchronized, like reflections in a broken mirror trying to become whole again. Without thinking, he ran, boots sinking into mud, heart pounding not from fear but urgency, and plunged into the freezing current, the force nearly knocking him under as he struggled toward them. One slipped beneath the surface, and for a moment he thought he was too late. But then he grabbed her arm, cold, trembling real, and pulled her up, then reached for the second, dragging both toward the shore with a strength he didn't know he had left, until finally they collapsed onto the muddy bank, coughing, gasping, alive. Inside his cabin, the fire crackled as he wrapped them in thick blankets, his hands steady even as his mind raced. And when they finally lifted their heads, he realized they were identical. Same eyes, same face, same quiet intensity, but not the same presence. One seemed calmer, controlled, while the other's gaze flickered with emotion, barely held back. Their voices came softly, hesitant English forming careful words. Mylene, Mayu, names that felt like echoes of each other, and though they thanked him, something remained unspoken, hanging in the air like the storm outside. And then, as the wind rattled the windows and the fire cast shadows across the room, one of them asked, almost in a whisper, "Will you stay if we undress?" And time seemed to pause, not because of the words themselves, but because of the vulnerability behind them. A question not of impropriety, but of trust, survival, and a culture he didn't yet understand. And in that moment, Liang Wei realized this night was not an ending, but a beginning he could not yet comprehend. Morning did not bring clarity, it brought questions. The storm had passed, leaving behind a washed, fragile world. But inside the cabin the air felt heavier, filled with things unsaid and meanings not yet understood, as Liang Wei moved quietly between routine and observation, preparing food, tending the fire, watching the twins without appearing to do so. Maylin was the first to speak again, her tone calm, almost practiced, as she explained their words from the night before, not as something shameful, but necessary, describing how in their homeland, survival in cold conditions demanded immediate action. Wet clothes removed without hesitation to preserve warmth and life, and how their question had not been about exposure, but about safety, whether he would remain, whether he could be trusted in their most vulnerable state. Mayu added little, but her eyes said more, flickering between gratitude and caution, as if trust for her was not easily given, even after being saved. Yet even as their explanations settled into something logical, something human, Ling Wei felt the quiet pull of inconsistency, the pauses between their words, the glances they exchanged, the way certain questions went, unanswered not directly but gently, avoided, and he recognized it not as deception but as protection, the kind people carry when the truth is dangerous. Throughout the day, their movements mirrored each other with uncanny precision, yet small differences began to emerge, tiny cracks in the illusion of sameness. And it was in those cracks that Liang Wei sensed their story was far more complex than a simple accident in a storm. And as the sun dipped low and shadows stretched across the land, he understood something deeply unsettling. The river had not just brought them here, it had delivered them from something. The days that followed created an illusion of peace, a fragile rhythm where silence became comfort and routine masked uncertainty. As the twins slowly integrated into the quiet life of the ranch, helping with small tasks, learning the patterns of the land, and sharing moments that almost felt normal. But the past is not something that fades, it waits, patient and persistent, and it revealed itself not through words, but through fear, sharp and unmistakable. The moment a black vehicle appeared at the edge of the property, its presence jarring against the openness of the valley like a stain on untouched fabric. Liu noticed it first, but it was Mei Yu's reaction that confirmed everything, her grip tightening, her breath catching, her eyes locking onto the distant shape with a terror she could not hide, while Meilin stood still, composed on the surface but with a tension that betrayed her calm. That night, the truth began to surface, not as a confession, but as fragments, whispers carried in low voices, pieces of a story too dangerous to tell all at once, revealing that they were not simply sisters who had fallen into a river, but fugitives from a life shaped by power, control, and exploitation, where their identical nature had made them valuable in ways that stripped them of identity and freedom. Liang Wei did not press them, did not demand clarity, because he understood that some truths cannot be forced. They must be given, and instead, he made his choice quietly, firmly, when the vehicle returned under the cover of darkness and unfamiliar men stepped out into the shadows, their intentions clear even without words. He stood between them and the cabin, not as a hero, but as a man who had decided that whatever past the twins were running from, it would not claim them here. Confrontation did not come with chaos. It came with control, cold and deliberate, as the men approached with the confidence of those accustomed to obedience, offering explanations that sounded like authority, promises that masked threats, and demands disguised as reason. But Liang Wei did not move, did not yield, his presence steady and unshaken as he refused to hand over the twins, his silence speaking louder than any argument. Inside the cabin, Meilin and Mei Yu faced a different kind of battle, one that had nothing to do with the men outside and everything to do with themselves, with the years they had spent running, hiding, surviving, and the question that now stood before them, whether to continue living in fear or to finally claim something they had, never truly had, a choice. It was Meilin who stepped forward first, her voice firm despite the tremor beneath it, rejecting the life that had defined them, while Mei Yu followed, her fear still present but no longer controlling her, and together they stepped into the light, no longer shadows of each other but individuals bound by something stronger than circumstance. The men left, not defeated, but delayed, their retreat a promise that the past was not finished. Yet in their absence something shifted, something fundamental, as the ranch transformed from a temporary refuge into something more permanent, more meaningful, a place where staying was no longer about necessity, but desire. Time did not erase what had happened, it reshaped it, turning fear into memory and uncertainty into quiet strength. As the seasons changed and the valley returned to its gentle rhythm, carrying with it the echoes of a storm that had altered 3 lives forever, Meilin and Mei Yu were no longer defined by what they had escaped, but by what they had chosen. Their bond no longer just a reflection of sameness, but a connection built on shared courage and individuality. While Liang Wei found himself changed in ways he had never expected, his solitary existence replaced by something fuller, richer, and infinitely more complex. The river remained, flowing as it always had, indifferent yet symbolic, a reminder of both danger and possibility. And it was there, standing at its edge once more, that the past and present finally aligned as Mei Yu spoke softly, her voice carrying a warmth that had once been absent, reminding him of the question they had asked on that first night. And Meilin completed the thought with quiet certainty that it had never truly been about whether he would stay, but whether they would find a place where they could. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the water in gold and shadow, Liu Mei understood that the storm had not taken anything from him. It had given him something he had never known he needed, a reason to no longer be alone, and a story that would forever belong to the river that brought them together.